1986 to 1987 as Ohio Jaycees President. He led Ohio to being one of the top states in the United States. After his term as state president, Mike served as the national vice president. For the past 25 years, he has portrayed our nation's 25th president, William McKinley. He is able to match up his knowledge of the presidents and the issues of the 1890s and comes in period costume as the president and brings McKinley to life. Mike presents his program to schools, historical churches, senior citizens, and civic groups. His program features a mix of historical information and experts of McKinley's speeches, which are timely to the issues of today. I'd like to welcome Mike to the stage. Stay for the end for a raffle.
That guy sounds pretty impressive. I want to make sure you do that. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. Great to be back home with the chapter. I will not take our new members and guests and do what you guys did to me to make me join North Columbus way back when. Now, Nancy, just so you know, there's a room back in the back of the kitchen, and it's where all the dishes and the plates are. And when they wanted me to join, guess where they put me? They put me in that room and said, when you join, you slide the money and the membership application under the door, you can join. Wow. And that's what they did. The mistake was, that's where they also kept the beer and the booze. I said, I might be out in a couple hours. So, no, we had fun. It's great to be with everybody. Thank you. It's great to be back home and with Jaycees. Do a little president, do a little JC. But I couldn't say enough about Steve Kowalski and the friendship he's meant for me for years and everything he's done. Just to keep Jaycees going and doing other things for all of you too. I know he's a big part of it. I know the past presidents and officers, I mean Greg and Connie sitting back there. I mean the friendships we've had and the friendships they've made and the leadership they've done for people makes a big difference. I'm excited to be here tonight because I've got another JC that's in the room that I met through Jaycees at an all-state, and then I had the fortunate opportunity to get married to. My wife Bonnie is here. Bonnie was one of the first female presidents in the JC organ. As a matter of fact, she shared the same year as Connie. They were presidents together. So it's my honor to have her there. And I'm very excited to have our son, William, Buddy Wilson, that's here today too. And he's done McKinley as a youth in different programs. They've done it at the McKinley Memorial Library and Birthplace Home in Niles, where we're from. So it's exciting to be here. And it's exciting to be with you. I'm just pumped and excited. Now, today is National Day of Prayer. So I had the opportunity to go down, and I'm going to put this down if that's okay.
Oh, that's fine.
I had the opportunity to go down and do the National Day of Prayer as William McKinley in the State House, in the atrium. And it was just wonderful. And I'll do McKinley here at the beginning, and then we can get into Jaycees and really talk about some other things if that's okay. But it was an honor to do that. I mean, I started doing McKinley. Bonnie and I got married 26 years ago in April, and then 3 months later I started doing President McKinley. And it was right after our honeymoon. There's a beautiful memorial in Niles, Ohio. It looks like the Lincoln Memorial. So picture the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. That's a lot. That McKinley Memorial looks a lot like the Lincoln Memorial with the big columns and everything out front and everything. And had the opportunity, Jaycees teach you a lot. It teaches you how to speak, it teaches you how to lead, it teaches you how to serve the community. I know we talked about the Easter egg hunt and how much fun your people had with the Easter egg hunt. And I think that's a great show, even though we said you got to get out of the way once the horn goes off, or they'll kill you as they go try to find those Easter eggs. You've got to get out of the way. But Jaycees mean a lot, and my gosh, yes, I've had a chance to deal with people that are in the room when they were babies. We won't talk about diaper changing and all that stuff. I don't want to embarrass Kevin. But, and now they're grown up and they're in Jaycees. And I just hope that's the way it will be for Buddy and other people of his age when he grows older too, that they can continue to serve this nation and do what we do. So it just makes a big difference. But I was in Niles, let's talk about the JC and Bonnie for a second. President of Niles area Jaycees, we meet at an all-state. We start dancing. We have a real good time. And we started dating long distance. Then I went to work in Marion, Ohio after I was National Vice President and working for the Jaycees. At that time, our headquarters was in Marion. And we would travel back and forth. And after about a year and a half, almost 2 years, she said, well, almost 3 years? You went that long with me? Almost 3 years of long distance dating. She said, that's it. If you don't come up here, we're done. I'm not doing this long distance stuff anymore. So little did I know that the JC leadership that she had, she wrote the resume, did the cover letter, and then she sent my resume and cover letter to a job with the Home Builders Association up in the Mahoning Valley, 3 counties. I didn't know anything about it. She goes, by the way, you've got an interview. I've talked to the committee chair. I've got an interview, and you're coming up to interview for that. I said, I didn't even apply for the job. What do you mean? She goes, oh, I did. And that's exactly how we got together, through the Jaycees and coming there. And I say that too a little bit because we were talking about Youth Build and how great Youth Build is. And when I was running the Home Builders Association, I was on the board of Youth Build in our area. And what a fabulous program, connection with the Jaycees. Whoever thought of that, of connecting Jaycees with Youth Build, were right on their thought pattern to do that. That was a great idea and concept. I mean, the program that Youth Build does, for our young people, and as I told Mackay earlier, I said, we made it a point to hire. Did I say it right? Malachi. Okay, I said Mackay, didn't I? Malachi, sorry. Boy, I'm really getting into that. I got to get back to the religion stuff. Here we go. But back to the day of prayer stuff. But Malachi, we were talking about that. It's just, we hire. We would hire the people. We would really focus on that. Matter of fact, our United Way president, she was part of that program where we would hire at-risk youth and we would get them involved and do things, and then they would get jobs in their fields and do different things. And that's what we do. And Jaycees keeps your program and your leadership going after you get those jobs and after you do what you do, because it's great to get leadership of learning how to fail at something. You can't always fail at work too many times, but you can fail on the Jaycees project. Prime example of this building with the failure of the Paul Harvey event that happened years ago and losing all that money, and then that same meeting someone gives you the opportunity to look at building these buildings and getting involved ahead of time, way ahead of time, for our JC forefathers of North Columbus to think about those things. It was great. But I started doing McKinley by accident. I was up there when we moved up to Niles, and I was standing next to the statue in the courtyard. There's a beautiful statue of McKinley at the memorial in the courtyard. And some young boy, probably 8 or 9 years old, is coming out of the library. And he comes out and he goes, "Mister, is that you in the statue?" I said, "Why do you think it's me in the statue?" He goes, "You're fat just like he is. You look like him." That's exactly what happened. And I said, "You're right. Maybe I could do it." When I lived in Marion, Ohio, they had a dentist that would do Warren G. Harding. So after I say that, I can't put it back in. The genie's out of the bottle, so I said, we'll give it a try. And that's exactly right. That's exactly how it began to deal with that. But my lovely wife giving me the opportunity to come there through Jaycees and meeting each other. We joke about it all the time. Bonnie is the director of Someplace Safe. That is the domestic violence program, the only one in our county. And she runs that program. Bonnie and I have been in nonprofit. She was in banking business too, that made a lot of more money and went back into nonprofit. I guess the JC in her wanted to serve people and go back into that. And so did I. After Jaycees and going up there in the Home Builders Association, I was the director of a conservation district. And then after that, I had the opportunity to become the director of our senior citizens organization for Trumbull County. We serve about 2,500 seniors with 6 centers, doing a lot of fun activities, doing a lot of things. She deals with the domestic violence issue. That unfortunately we have to have those type of shelters and those type of programs because of what happens too often in our communities and everything. But Jaycees, we always used to joke, we used to run our Niles Halloween parade and everything, and who else but a JC could learn how to run a parade? Who else but a JC could run? Because the people that worked for the city couldn't figure it out, how to organize people, how to get it going, right? I mean, and we were able to, our JC chapter members jumped up. I mean, I remember I was in charge when I worked for the Ohio Jaycees of building haunted houses all over the state and getting haunted houses and haunted forests and haunted everything. And Buddy What's the newest thing now, the craze that they have? It's not haunted houses. What is it called? You were telling us today. Escape rooms. But that's interesting. That's a biggie thing happening right now, isn't it? Funny how things continue to work different. So, but we had a chance to get together, and I was standing next to that statue, and I said, we'll give it a try. And that's how I began doing it. If I didn't have the JC experience and speak up and public speaking training, I wouldn't be able to do that. I wouldn't be able to do McKinley. You know, and it really made a difference. I remember the first couple months I was a JC, I joined at a haunted house project. And I'll never forget when I joined Northmont, they ran a haunted house, and I had worked it as a senior in high school. I said, this is a fun thing to do. So I remember the next year I turned 18, and I went up to the haunted house chairman, and I said, hey, I'd like to join. All of a sudden I hear a avalanche roaring. And it's getting louder and louder, and it's all these members running to me saying, here's your membership app. You're mine, you're mine, you're mine. They wanted to kill me because I wanted to join. You're volunteering. That doesn't happen. You're volunteering, and I'll never forget that. And having fun with that project, working in a haunted house. And I remember going to Fairborn, Ohio, to the Fairborn Jaycees for a speak up competition. Didn't really want to do it, but you had to do it on the JC Creed. What does the JC Creed mean to you? So I remember sitting in the back. I'm doing it halfway because I'm drinking beer. So I figured, okay, I can get excited about this more. So I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do. They have another speaker go up in front of me, and this person goes up and goes, adjusts himself, and he goes, JCs mean to me. And starts talking. And I'm sitting in the back, and I'm getting nervous. Going, this guy's pretty good. He's doing a good speech, and I haven't figured out what I'm doing yet. So he gets done with his speech, and then I said, okay, I'm going to go up and give it a try. Okay, I finished that bottle. I'm ready to go. I'll go up there, and I remember walking up, and I stand there, and I get behind the podium, and I go, JCs mean to me, because I thought that's how you had to start it. And then I look, and the crease behind me, isn't it? That's where it was in Fairborn. JCs mean to me, and I go, oh, I can't remember the creed. Oh yeah, I didn't even know the creed then by heart. Remember how we always try to recite it at the end of the meeting to do it by heart? I didn't remember it. And I'm standing there, and I'm nervous, and I'm feeling warm. I'm feeling really warm. But the warm is not coming here. The warm is down there. And I realized I wet my pants in front of all those people. Now I was wearing them old-fashioned blue jeans that if it gets wet, you could tell it's wet. And it's all over, and they're laughing like buddy. It's all over the place. All these, and there's 3 judges sitting back there going, And I can't remember for the life of me what I talked about because I wet my pants in front. Maybe they felt bad for me because I won the competition. I don't know why. They must have felt bad for me. I won the competition, went on to the state convention to do it. Didn't do too well there, but went on from that one. But yeah, that's how it started. And now my wife jokes, because I did not like to give speeches. I didn't like to get in front of people. I wouldn't mind working behind the scenes at haunted houses and putting a mask on and growling at people, but getting in front of that podium or behind that podium, doing that scary thing. Didn't really want to do that. JC gives you a chance. Now my wife tells everybody, he goes to the refrigerator, he opens the door, the light comes on, and he starts speaking. It's a total different thing. I said, well, that's what happens. But I love this organization. I love what it does for young people. Every young people needs to experience it. It does so many great things for themselves. Because my wife and I would not be successful like we are in our life now. I'm 59, she's younger. Steve knows better. But I married an older woman, She had to teach me, train me. I wouldn't be the success I am if it wasn't for Jaycees. And that's my point I'm making. And now for me to chance to go around all over the country for 26 years and bring President McKinley to life for people in front of youth, in front of senior citizens, in front of church groups, in front of JC chapters, in front of historical societies. It's just an exciting thing to do, to bring him to life. And JC's gave me that opportunity, gave me the training. and public speaking training to become another person and learn about the history of this person. So yes, after I said it, I started reading books about McKinley and his life in the late 1800s, and I was amazed at how history repeats itself, how history is now. The things that you're going through as young people now are the things that they went through 120 years ago when McKinley was president. And it's interesting because from today, let me do a little excerpt of what we did today for National Day of Prayer. Because that faith in God gives meaning and purpose to human life. From William McKinley, our 25th president. I am proud to be a Christian, which began with my life in Niles, Ohio, where I was born. Thanks to my mother's influence and her work with the local church. My family moved to Poland, Ohio, where we could go to Poland Seminary School. I had a conversion experience at the age of 12, and I wrote to my mother, I have not done my duty. I am a sinner. I want to be a Christian. I give myself to the Savior, which has done much for me. At the age of 15, I was baptized at the Poland Methodist Church, and I wrote to my minister, I have found the pearl of great price. By the blessings of heaven, I mean to live and die to please God. In my first inaugural address, as president, I would begin as such. I assume the arduous and responsible duties of the presidency of the United States, relying on the support of my countrymen and invoking the guidance of Almighty God. Our faith teaches us that there is no safer reliance than upon the God of our fathers, who has singly favored the American people in every national trial, and who will not forsake us so long as we obey his commandments and walk humbly in his footsteps. I end it with the oath that I've taken today as an obligation which I've taken before the Lord Most High. To keep it will be my constant prayer and single purpose. My Bible was open to Micah 6:8. What does the Lord require of thee but to do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with God? During the first few months of my presidency, my wife Ida and I would allow people to come into the White House, and we would have Sunday night hymn nights and Bible studies. Anyone was welcome. I began that practice during the Civil War, where I would have camp meetings and prayer meetings in camp. And I wrote to my dear mother, our weekly prayer meetings seem to have a good effect on the troops. I tell you now, Mother, before my first battle, if I die, I want to leave behind that I fell not only as a soldier of my country, but as a soldier of Jesus Christ. My statement of faith is that my belief embraces the divinity of Christ and the recognition of Christianity as the mightiest factor in world civilization. He who serves the master best serves man best. When we study the Bible, we discover it to be God's great love story to man. That was from today. Portions of it. And I really learn every time I do McKinley, I learn about a lot of things. Every time. I've been doing it for 26 years. I learn a lot of different things about history and life and how things repeat itself. It's just amazing how we get there and how we do things. And of course, I have to wear these now on some of these parts. On some of these. But it's amazing how history repeats itself in some of the things we deal with. When McKinley was governor of the state of Ohio, and if you go on the State House, on the west side of the State House, you see the big statue of William McKinley waving. He's doing this. He's waving to his wife. He would do that every day because where the Vern Wright building is now used to be the Columbus Hotel. So he would wave up to Ida. They had 2 young children. Both died within 2 months of each other. Mrs. McKinley would become an invalid. She also had epilepsy. So she would suffer from strokes and epilepsy seizures. And the president or the governor at the time would always throw a handkerchief over her face. Not because he was embarrassed by her, so she would be embarrassed by what was happening. I said, man, that's a great love story. He went all the way from private to brevet major in the Civil War. Matter of fact, he's the only president to raise the rank that high. Think about most of our officers go into second lieutenant, and then they could get to general, or privates, and they can get into the different sergeants. But McKinley was able to start as a buck private and go all the way to brevet major. So he liked to be called Major McKinley. They would call him governor. They'd call him Mr. President. He liked to be Major McKinley. It's amazing, their love story. But, you know, she just didn't do well, so he would try to take care of her the best he could. When he was running for governor, he would stop by Alliance, Ohio. Alliance, Ohio is up by Canton. He would stop by Alliance, Ohio, and a little girl came up to him. She's probably 7 or 8 years old. She gave him a scarlet carnation. Alliance is known as Carnation City. And she gave him a scarlet carnation that he would wear, and then he'd try to wear a flower all the time in his lapel for good luck. Did as governor, and they would ship. Now, back then they didn't have refrigerators. When I tell that story to kids in elementary school and schools, they go, what? They don't have refrigerators back then. How do they eat? I said, well, they did a lot of cooking inside and a lot of bathroom outside. They go, what? I said, yeah, they had outhouses for bathroom. They cooked inside. Now we all want to cook outside. And never mind. But I mean, I'm getting off track. But it's just crazy how things change. And how when I'm telling kids, they go, wow. I said, yeah, they don't have cell phones or computers back then. What? I mean, McKinley was president before we had airplanes. What? How'd they get around? How do they talk to people? It's amazing when you talk to little kids and you deal different programs with people on what they're doing. But McKinley, as he's running for president of the United States, the election of 1896 was probably one of the most important elections for our nation. The Ohioan named William McKinley was going against a Nebraskan named William Jennings Bryan. William Jennings Bryan was the greatest speaker of his time, orator of his time. He got nominated by his party because of one speech he gave. They loved him so much and liked what he said in his speech that they nominated him for president over a sitting president. Over a sitting president, Grover Cleveland, that was wanting to get renominated. And William Jennings Bryan got that nomination. Now, he was from Nebraska. That's silver country. The election in 1896 was gold and silver. It was going to set our monetary standard of America. Okay? Whenever I do programs in schools, it's so hard to explain monetary standard, money, and bimetallism, gold and silver standard. It's hard to explain to kids a lot of that type of stuff. But that was a big thing. America had just suffered in 1893 the Great Depression. We hear from our grandparents and great-grandparents about the 1930s, Great Depression before the Second World War started. You know, but the Great Depressions happened in 1872, 1893, and of course the 1930s. We've had multiple depressions and recessions, but we've had 3 depressions but multiple recessions. They called them panics or whatever at the time. So they had one in 1893. So what was happening is the farmers were having a lot of people, they had families live together. Grandmas, great-grandmas, everybody lived together. Multiple generations. They were using old farming equipment. And we had people coming over on the boats, the Ellis Island and different places coming over because of the new jobs that were going to be happening with the factories and the industrial might that we were going to prepare for as a nation. And it was amazing how they were coming over. Well, the fear was that those farmers weren't smart enough to feed all the people. They didn't have the right equipment. They didn't have the brain to feed all the people. Okay? And so then you've got the factory owners, because banks didn't reinvest or invest in them at the time. The factory owners invested their own money. Did you know our cities and most of our communities are based, their houses are based on the factories and where people worked? If you had a factory right here, then the next ring, they would build houses. And it would be the factory workers that did the worst jobs. Lowest pay, menial work. The next group would be the people that were technical people. Then management, and of course then the ownerships. I can go up to Akron and look at the Firestone and the Goodyear people, and you can see exactly how they did the housing structures that they have in Akron. I can go a lot of places. Of course, where we live in Youngstown, Warren, a lot of steel was made there, because we're halfway between Cleveland and Pittsburgh, so you could see how that was going on. They were afraid to reinvest their own money. You know, they were the ones building the houses for all the people coming all over. And with the Great Depression of 1893, there were hundreds and thousands of people dying every day because there wasn't food, there wasn't a place to live, they were having diseases. I mean, they were doing multiple grave sites. We think third world countries right now with multiple grave sites and putting 500 bodies into a grave site. That was happening all the time in the late 1800s because of disease and because of hunger and everything else going on. They were afraid to reinvest their money. So there were a lot of things going on. Well, how do I explain this to kids and how do I explain it to people when we're talking about gold versus silver in McKinley? I was doing a program a few years ago, and George Bush II, President Bush, George W. Bush, his campaign guy is Karl Rove. You might have seen him on CNN, Fox News. Karl Rove is president of the National McKinley Fan Club. So we've been talking to Karl, that newfangled thing called Facebook, and texting and all that other stuff, And we were talking, he said, Mike, he said, study the relationship between the book, The Wizard of Oz, and the election of 1896, because the book that L. Frank Baum wrote was based on William McKinley and William James Bryan. And that campaign in McKinley's first term. I said, what? Yeah, he says, I was going to do a thesis on Teddy Roosevelt at the University of Texas. My professor said, don't do it on Teddy Roosevelt. Everybody does it on Teddy Roosevelt. Do it on this relationship between the Wizard of Oz. He says, I'm not telling you anything. You've got to study it and read it. So when you give speeches, you can tell them what you read and how you understand it. Now, the interesting thing, what I'm about to tell you folks, is the fact that my wife and son, on a field trip, went up to Cleveland's Mint, the Western Reserve, the Federal Reserve. And on the wall of the Federal Reserve was this story. Is this correct? Buddy?
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll believe you more. Good, buddy. No, Bonnie said, okay, yeah. So you heard it. So it's the connection between the Wizard of Oz and gold, silver. I said, wow, how could that be connected? Well, think about what we said earlier. McKinley was coming into the presidency or running into that election with gold. He was from Ohio. We tied in with the North and the East. Okay? The North and the East. Okay? At the time after the Civil War, where did the Good Witch come from? Where did Glinda the Good Witch come from?
East.
The East? The West? The South? The North? Didn't you guys ever see the movie? The Wizard of Oz?
Didn't just come.
The North. Glinda was the Good Witch of the North. Okay? Remember, we still had the North and South. We still had the division with the Civil War, Reconstruction. It's interesting because we look at it. So, there was a young lady named Leslie Kelsey from Liberal, Kansas. She was going to run for president for the Populist Party of America. We had three political parties then in 1896. Democrat, Republican, Populist. Populist Party would later become the Communist Party of America in the 1900s. The Populist Party of America, they did something unique. They took their tents, they took their wagons, they took anything they could, cooking utensils, all that, and they went to New York City and they sat on the streets of Wall Street and blocked the streets and intersections. They called it in 1896, Occupy Wall Street. Wait a minute. Didn't that just happen 5 years ago? 6 years ago, we had Occupy Wall Street. History repeats itself. If only we could learn from it, ladies and gentlemen, how history does repeat itself. Occupy Wall Street. Let's go, wow, cool. Occupy Wall Street. Of course, we went to a program in Buffalo, New York, and we were going to do that, a beautiful big monolith for McKinley, because unfortunately that's the place where McKinley would be shot and killed. But we were there, and they had the Wall Street demonstrators there. And Bonnie looks at me and goes, don't talk to them. Please don't go up to them and tell them they're not doing anything new. It was done back in 1896. I said, I got to give them a history lesson. We'll go do that. Come on. And it's fun to go up there. But it was interesting because they were doing that then. Because what was happening is the farmhouses were being foreclosed upon. Families were they were having trouble with drought that was happening. So they couldn't grow their crops in the plains, state farmers. So they were having all these problems with all that. So that was all going on. Oops, sorry. That was all going on. And so as I start reading and studying about it, I'm going, wow, who could have been the Wicked Witch of the East? Wouldn't it be perfect for a foreclosing farmhouse to fall on a mortgage banker? The Wicked Witch of the East. the mortgage bankers and Wall Streeters. When they land in Munchkin Land, Dorothy gets out of Munchkin Land because Leslie Kelsey was from liberal Kansas. She was known as the Kansas Tornado. She would travel all over the country with giving speeches. And guess what the title of her speech was? There's no place like home. That's exactly right. Interesting how things work as we study this. Leslie Kelsey traveling. She ended up not running for president, but they did their Occupy Wall Street. So they land in Munchkin Land. So where's the Munchkins tell Dorothy to go?
Emerald City.
Emerald City. Follow the
Yellow brick road.
yellow brick gold. To prosperity. To Emerald City. To power. Right? It's interesting. How do we measure gold and silver?
Brick.
By OZ. Ounce. OZ. The Wizard of Oz. OZ. Ounce. Interesting how you weigh it. So they tell her to go down there. So who does she run into down there? She runs into a scarecrow. The scarecrow represents what in 1896? Or who? The farmers. What does the scarecrow need from the wizard? To feed the people. Next one in line, they run into the Tin Man, representing industry, factories, the factory owners. In the book, the Tin Man's holding the axe when they find him, and he goes, this has been frozen for 4 years, 1893 to 1897. Interesting. Oh, I almost forgot. As she's walking down the yellow brick road, what are her shoes?
Rubies.
In the 1939 movie with Technicolor, they made them ruby slippers. But that's not what the book has. She's silver shoes. She's from silver country. She's a silver girl from Kansas. Silver shoes, but they look terrible for the movie. So they put all these red glass things on the shoes, and guess what? Ruby slippers to make it look nice for the movie. But if you read the book, it's silver shoes, silver girl. Wow, follow the yellow brick road. Now, the media, led by William Randolph Hearst and the newspaper people at the time, they called William Jennings Bryan the cowardly candidate. He was all bark and no bite. He would say all this, but he had no stability to what he was saying and what he was preaching. The cowardly lion.
Was he the representative for the Populist Party, or what was
Yes, it's interesting you asked that question. That's a great question. Mike Wilson, wearing that name badge. Smarty. I'll get you, Matt. But William Jennings Bryan actually ran as for president under both the Democrat Party and the Populist Party. But they had two different vice presidents. The Democrats picked the vice president for him. The Populist Party picked a different one. If he would have beat McKinley and been elected, I don't know which he would have picked. The Populist Party were demonstrating and going everywhere. You know, they were going out and they had picketing, they had protesting, they had everything going all over the place. And they were just demonstrating everywhere they could. They were destroying windows and businesses. They were doing, wait a minute, am I talking about 1896 or 2012? Interesting. Or 2016, excuse me, I've dated myself, 2016. So, yeah, that's your answer. He ran for both. He was under the category for both. Good question. So he's running for president, the cowardly candidate. And of course, they're going to follow the yellow brick road. Who do you think the Wicked Witch of the West would have represented in 1896? Or 1900 when L. Frank Baum wrote the book? Any idea? I mentioned it earlier. What's the worst thing for farmers in the Plain States? Well, what caused them not to make money to be able to pay the banks? Drought. The Wicked Witch of the West was drought. That's a good answer. Good job. Was drought. It caused the problems. How do you end drought? Right, rain. You throw water on it. We watched the movie, right?
Yep.
How's the Wicked Witch of the West sink into the ground?
Through water.
When Dorothy throws water on her and it goes into the ground. I go, wow, Carl, you're onto something here. I mean, I really learned this stuff and figured this out. Everything. Now, if you look at the book and you see the illustration of what the wizard looked like, you see William McKinley. Because William McKinley wouldn't travel from Canton because of his invalid wife for the campaign. He would hide behind the curtain of the window. They would wait till tons of people would come, stand in their front yard and their flower bed, and they would stand there to hear him give speeches from his porch. He'd come out from behind the curtain, and William McKinley would give his speeches. He didn't travel. His campaign cost $4 million in 1896. That's $4 billion in our money. $4 billion in our money. $4 million. Because he didn't travel. So it was the first president to have campaign budgets and buttons and badges, and they would have something as big as the JC Creed there, of tapestries of McKinley's face and promoting, a full pail, the opportunity to follow the yellow brick road to prosperity. I said, wow, man, that really gets me. See how it works? See how history can happen? See how we learn stuff? They say even the book, what is it, Alice in Wonderland, was based off a math teacher. It's based off mathematics. They say they deal, normally with children books, they deal with things. Well, let me see if you can hear The Wizard of Oz at McKinley's first inaugural. I'm only going to hit a few parts. We enter this first day of our responsibility to this nation with a debt of $4 million. Billion forever. Agriculture is languished with old equipment. Labor has suffered with no growth. With the need for the revival of manufacturing, I strongly believe as your president that legislation helpful to producers and employers is beneficial to all. The depressed condition of our industry has lessened the ability of the people to meet the needs upon them. Thus, every means will be taken to decrease rather than increase public expenditures. It is the settled policy of the government to raise the bulk of our revenue from taxes upon foreign goods entering these United States and avoiding for the most part every form of direct taxation except for in time of war. One of our first efforts will be to set a tariff on products made outside of our borders. This will protect American jobs and grow the nation from the inside. The country is clearly opposed to any needless addition in internal taxation, as the United States Supreme Court recently ruled that income tax is illegal. Nothing has ever been made plainer at a general election. Raising revenue shall come from the duties on imports rather than from the backs of working class citizens. Equality of rights must prevail, and our laws must be respected. Lynchings and hangings must no longer be tolerated in a great and civilized nation as ours. Our national nation and immigration laws should be further improved to the constant promotion of a better citizen. One of our first actions is to establish a temporary halt to immigrants entering these United States because we don't have the jobs and we don't have the homes for them. Illiteracy must be banished from the land if we're to become the most enlightened nation of the world. In his first inaugural address of 1897, do we hear 2016 topics? We hear about immigration. We hear, matter of fact, I was telling the seniors at 4 o'clock today, McKinley and those people were talking about a wall. We were going to put a wall up. But it wasn't going to be Mexico. It was Canada. America was talking about wall with Canada, not in Mexico. Canada. But it's amazing how some of the topics, tariffs, protecting foreign goods or American goods versus foreign goods and things like that were all things that have happened. And as I studied history, a lot of this stuff has happened and continues on. It's amazing. And I don't want to get political. That's not the purpose of history for me to do that. It's just bringing up amazing how things can repeat itself if we learn from them and do that. It's just amazing how that works. So that was going on. So you heard a little bit about the wizard in there with some of the things that were going on for that original speech. Then the Spanish-American War happens. That's where the battleship Maine blows up in Havana Harbor. Teddy Roosevelt and the Rough Riders, San Juan Hill, all those things. It's so funny because that all happens. McKinley wanted to focus on the economy and focus on America, and then he's got a war. A year and a half into his presidency. And history repeats itself. The Spanish-American War was about Spain mistreating the Cubans in the Philippines, and America coming to their aid so they could offer freedom to those nations. It's interesting how history repeats itself. In 1991, Iraq invades Kuwait, and George Bush I has to send our troops over there to free Kuwait from the Iraqis and push them back to Baghdad. That operation lasted 5 months. The Spanish-American War for McKinley lasted 5 months. Very similar, how things happen and repeat themselves with stuff, and that happened to him. So then all of a sudden McKinley becomes the first world leader, and that puts a bullseye on him. We have anarchists back then. We call them domestic terrorists now. They had cells operating. There was a major cell in Cleveland, Ohio, run by a lady named Emma Goldman, domestic terrorist. And their plan was to shoot and kill President McKinley, the first world leader of America. And that was what their plan was planning. McKinley started talking to some women about giving women the right to vote. If McKinley would have stayed alive, women would have voted 16 years before they were allowed to, because he was planning on doing that. Matter of fact, the women's suffrage movement is based in Warren, Ohio, where we live. That's where their headquarters were for years. And McKinley would visit the people there to talk about women's right to vote. I thought it was interesting. So being the first world leader, and now we're getting possessions of Caribbean countries. You know, the territories, Puerto Rico, some of the other nations we're starting to get. He also annexed Hawaii. And I was reading a book. It's called The President and the Assassin. It's the story of Leon Sosgaz, 20 years leading up to the assassination of McKinley, and McKinley for 20 years. And I just liked reading it. And they were in the White House talking to McKinley, why would you want to annex Hawaii? That's nowhere near Cuba. Why would you do it? But they needed the naval station to be able to go and fight in the Philippines. So thus Pearl Harbor was established. And McKinley, in the book I read, says the following: we must take control of the Hawaiian Islands to protect our nation. There are a lot of Japanese that are moving to the Hawaiian Islands. We have to protect our nation because they're a warlike people. And someday they will attack this nation. And I'd rather have them attack it in Hawaii than attack it on the west coast of our nation. He said that 42 years before Pearl Harbor. He said that might, and that's the reason why. To give us a chance to have military operations to deal with it, because we weren't going to be able to just win this war. We were going to have to maintain a military and a navy that had to be rebuilt. And that's what Teddy Roosevelt did. He was Assistant Secretary of the Navy. Besides being leader of the Rough Riders, that's what he would do and everything. And that's what country did, so that's what we did. I'm going, wow. Because I never knew that about McKinley. I didn't know about the history of us getting Hawaii and all those type of things too. So there's a lot to it. It's interesting, as I give you the final speech McKinley would give in his life, the day before he would be assassinated. He's giving it around September 11th, 1901. Okay? It's right around September 11th, 1901. He talks about what the country's going to be like 100 years from now. Okay? Which would be September of 2001. So in September in 1901, McKinley would talk about whoever the president would be, whatever the country would be like, this is what I'm seeing for the future. Are you ready? I'm going to read it to you. In the future, transportation communication will become immediate. The same important news is read, though in different languages, the same day. We will be kept advised of what is occurring everywhere, and the press foreshadows with more or less accuracy the plans and purposes of all the nations. Market prices of products, stocks, and securities will be hourly known in every commercial market. And the investments of the people will extend beyond their own national boundaries into the remotest parts of the world. The gathering and transmission of news like rapid transit are of recent origin, and are made possible by the genius of the inventor, but just as important, the courage of the investors. In this medical arts building here at the Pan American Exposition is a medical contraption called the X-ray light machine, which will probably change medicine and life itself. And it will be needed 100 years from now for both the natural and the man-made disaster that will befall this nation. 100 years before September 11th, 2001. McKinley talked about what was going to happen. And you all did the same thing most of my audiences all do. We all get quiet, like, wow. Of course, some of them are in the back are going, now can I add that up right? Is that 100? You know, I'm trying to get it. I don't want to talk about 30 acre here, you know, so give him any grief. But I promised Kowalski I wouldn't pick on him tonight, so I'd go with the dad, you know. Going to have to go with senior and take care of it, you know. No, it's really something to bring history to life. Now, when I go to the elementary schools to bring history to life, the kids all want to know, did you have any kids? Did you have any pets? What it was like living in the White House? It's fun to do that, you know. Now, they had a couple cats that the King and Queen of Spain gave them upon their inauguration, but once the war broke out with Spain, nobody saw those cats anymore around the White House, so who knows what happened to them. But there was a Commodore from a European Navy that gave McKinley a parrot. And unfortunately, this parrot loved women. And he loved to cuss. And this parrot at White House dinners, they'd have to cover the darn thing. Because when the women came walking in, the parrot started going off. It was amazing. Now, back when I used to do McKinley at the beginning, I had an animatronic parrot that I would take with me to do it with the kids, and the darn thing wouldn't work half the time, so I said, I'm not doing that. So. Now, when I get to middle school and junior high, the kids start going, what gun did he use to shoot him? How did he shoot him? What happened to him? It's amazing how I go to elementary schools when I do it all over this country, and the kids are all like this in elementary, and when they get to middle school, we're already talking about violence and violent activities. It's amazing what you younger people have had to put up with, more than even we did in our generation, with having this on TV and all these other things that were happening and experiencing. And we've had to experience it in our lives with different things. But it's amazing. So the kids want to know, and I said, yeah, well, he used a short .38, 2 bullets into McKinley. Okay? McKinley gets done with his, you know, just visiting with people. He had a handkerchief that he covered his gun with. It was a hot day in Buffalo in September, so everybody had handkerchiefs to do this to their heads and everything. And he had it under, and then he took the shots at McKinley. It's interesting how almost 80 years later, the same thing happens in Washington, D.C. A young man's got a gun under a handkerchief. The President of the United States walks out of a hotel in Washington, D.C., and 2 shots are fired into Ronald Reagan. 80 years later, almost to the day. McKinley, they rush him on an electric ambulance to the president's home. They have no electric inside. They have all the electric like you see at Christmas time with the lights in the houses outside. That's what they had. They didn't have an electric yet. And they refused to use the X-ray time light machine because it was experimental. Ronald Wilson Reagan gets shot. They put him in a limousine. They rush him to the hospital. And what do they use on him? An X-ray machine to try to find those bullet fragments. McKinley would die 8 days later of the disease, of the gangrene, of the infection, not of the bullet wound itself, of the infection. Ronald Reagan survives because of all the equipment that changed in those 80 years since McKinley was shot. Really something, and you learn about it. Leon, so those guys that would shoot him would immediately be caught. After McKinley dies, he becomes an assassin. 1 week later, he's in front of the court, state of New York, finds him guilty. 1.5 weeks later, he's electrocuted. The first criminal of his type to be electrocuted. I said history. Wow. And I will not do President McKinley at high schools anymore. I am too tired of those kids looking at me and going, you're too short and fat to be Abraham Lincoln. I said, okay, so, no, I joke about that. It's great to bring history to life. It's great to do that. I hope you've enjoyed a little bit and learned something. I always offer my groups, I'll give you $500 if you can tell me honestly you didn't learn anything. But I was afraid to make the offer with a couple of these people in this room. I know they are. I'm going to make that offer because they go after the real money with me. But it's fun to bring him to life. It's fun to talk about it. It's fun to expose people to history, and it's fun for me to expose them to Jaycees. Because I always brag on Jaycees and what we learned, and what we did, and what we continue to do. And I tell people, you know, get into an organization. Do something for somebody else. Offer community service, but better yourself. Take advantage of every free training, leadership opportunity that this organization gives you. Continue to do what you're doing in youth build. Continue to help people out. Continue the partnership with what you're doing. Because I think it's very important for us to keep this going for the future. And North Columbus Jaycees, the greatest chapter in Ohio, continues to do that. It makes a difference. And you're going to have some other chapters that are jealous. They've been jealous back in our day, and they're probably jealous now, and it happens. Don't worry about them. Just keep doing all the good things you're doing for people, and keep doing all the fun stuff too. I know doing the Ohio State stuff, the parking and meeting a lot of people and helping people out and just having a blast, because I'm sure you wouldn't do a project if this chapter didn't have fun. So I'm assuming all the projects are fun, and I'm sure we eat well at those projects, don't we? Yeah, I'm sure we eat well at them projects. You know, I was thin until I joined Jaycees. So, and then I tried to say, well, it's because I got a beer belly. But then after I married Bonnie, and she's half Italian, it's the pasta belly that I got, so yeah. And it's funny, we were joking with Connie back there in the back. She's getting her Sprite, I'm drinking my Tim Hortons. I go, it's come a long way from margaritas, hasn't it, Connie? You know, back in those days, oh my gosh. But we had a blast doing a lot of things and helping a lot of people. And your chapter's a great chapter, and I've had fun doing it and helping out people. We help the Kent Jaycees, we work with them when they do their Grill for Good event that they got coming up here in a couple of months. And they help actually our nonprofit by doing what they do up there, so we get real excited about doing that. Bonnie's recruited people for the Kent Jaycees and all that stuff, so she's actually helped out when she was working over there, that area. It never ends, and I know you guys are going to work on an extension, possibly Grove City or wherever you're talking about doing. Good job. Keep doing it. We want to do it. I've already been talking up in Warren to some of the old Warren Jaycees that we need to try to push to get a chapter up there going again. Because everybody that's successful in Warren, our mayor, our city council people, okay, our funeral director, that's top notch, one of our doctors, a lot of our business people, we're all Jaycees. And now I'm putting it onto them going, wait a minute, we all bragged how much we loved it and what we did. We got to expose younger people to that. Let's step up. So I think we're going to really do a push. So if that can be a long distance extension from North Columbus, we can always, well, you're my chapter, so it could be a long distance extension. Forget Kent. We can do a long distance extension if that's what we want to do for you. But I just think that's something important to continue to do, what you're doing and all that. And, you know, and you're making a difference, and we know it. I mean, look, the success we've had and the friendships we made, you know, and talking to the old people. And, you know, even though I couldn't come to a JCI Senate convention one year, you invited my sister and my brother-in-law, and Anita and Dave were there, and they wanted to be here tonight. But yeah, it was exciting. So, and it's fun. I love doing what I do. Bonnie really works hard. Jaycees gave us a chance to work hard. You know, I run a senior citizen organization. I have 2,500 members that we serve on a yearly basis, seniors at 6 centers. We do a lot. Let me tell you, I went to work there a couple years ago, and I knew about bingo and card playing, you know, and game boards and all that, you know, and I bet you if I went in the closet, there'd be stuff in the closet for it. But, you know, we do, you know, I knew about that. And then I knew they had fitness programs, you know, dance programs. And let me tell you, I've tried line dancing, both country and non-country style. I didn't know there was a difference, but there is in line dancing. And I've tried square dancing, okay? I even tried tap dancing, but this wide body was crashing on the tap floor, let me tell you. And there's one dance I wouldn't do. I refused it. I was not doing. In my Nile Center, they do belly dancing. I said, no. You're not going to see the director doing any belly dancing with this group. Matter of fact, it was funny. It has the most men of all my senior men. They signed up for belly dancing. That class has more men than every other class I have of dancing. But it's not because they're dancing. It's because they're watching. If you would meet our instructor, you would know why. They're watching our instructor, so I always give him grief. But I really didn't know, you know, I knew about that and the fitness and all those things that they were doing. But we also have a supportive services side. And I didn't really realize that. We've got too many seniors getting ripped off by their families. We have senior citizens that are getting ripped off by their own families. The heroin epidemic, the drugs, all the other issues that are happening and affecting this community. My wife has been the keynote speaker at our Alliance for our drug program in Trumbull County multiple times. She started a program, the JC in her started a program. What do you call it, my dear?
The Alliance for Substance Abuse Prevention.
The Alliance for Substance Abuse Prevention. And what do? What's the big project?
Hope for Recovery.
Hope for Recovery. So they do a Hope for Recovery event. She goes to the mental health board to talk to them about doing it, the JC in her. And she wants to do it on a Saturday night. And what did everybody say, my wife?
No one will come.
How many people were at your Hope for Recovery event?
Several hundred.
Several hundred people came to our Hope for Recovery event for families suffering and dealing with what we've dealt with and other people have dealt with having a family member having an issue. Anything else you want us to say about it?
No, other than addicts can recover, people can change, their families can heal.
So a JC project she did within the community, but we didn't say it was a JC project, it was Hope for Recovery. Those things happen all the time. There's JC members and former JC members all over the country that are doing projects and doing other things in their communities to help out. And it was the membership in this JCs, it was writing that chairman's planning guide or whatever you call it now, the book you write for your projects, whatever you call it now. You know, we're learning how to write and plan and prepare a project and do that. And I know they did it in Grand Rapids. And that was a good experience for you, because you told me that.
Absolutely.
It was a great leadership training to give you a chance to come here and move to Columbus and they make you president. I moved to Columbus and they make me state president. So, you and I got something close here. But it just make a difference, folks, and you can. So continue to do what you're doing out there. You know, I would say this if there was one person in the audience, and he knows it. I would talk to that one person and just say, give it a shot. Give it a chance to change your life. And get more people to enjoy it, and have fun, and do it together. You know, and I tell people in our church that. Get your younger people more involved. JCs is a great leadership tool to do that. And if it wasn't JCs, other organizations. Because other organizations are suffering, you know, whether it's the Kiwanis or the Rotary and other places suffering down numbers in their organizations. So, but we got to keep, this is what the country was made on. It was on individuals stepping up and helping other individuals rather than government doing it. Even though there's times government needs to be there to help people. But it's great when you see churches or nonprofits or civic organizations or JC chapters doing it and making a difference. So, but I really appreciate the opportunity you gave me for a long time to talk. And just bring up McKinley. I hope you had fun. I know you all laughed at least one time. Well, yeah, especially when I talked about wetting my pants at the beginning. All of you went off on that one. But that's a true story. That happened. And it makes a difference for the future. Buddy always laughs. He goes, I always want to hear that wet your pants story when you do that. He's had a chance to travel around now and hear that. So, but it's a great organization. If you're not a member, join. Give it a try. Give it 1 year, then quit. How many people have not quit after 1 year? They stay on and they stay around. And if they do quit, they move on to something else. It's a movement. I always said Jaycees was a movement. You move in, you move through, and then you move out, but you don't go too far away so you can help the young ones and the new ones. And that's the difference between North Columbus and all these other chapters, and we could tell the state president that. That's the difference. When North Columbus chapters have older members, former presidents, people like that that are still active and still care about the young people that are in the chapter. That's the reason why you're successful and you're still alive, and all the other chapters are not. Because of that. You kept that alive. You kept that feeling. So I'm bragging on some of the older members right now, if that's okay, and some of my fellow, well, I wouldn't say aged members, but that's a difference. I think that makes a difference. So just keep it up. And remember to do that when you're talking, when other chapters are talking to you at president's meetings. Oh, I'm down, I'm not doing that. Just keep it going. It'll be a great difference. So, I don't know if anybody's got any questions, if you want any questions or anything, and not, I'll shut up and let you enjoy the rest of your night. Yes, Mike.
Wow, what was that McKinley book you
It was called The President and the Assassin. President and Assassin's the book that I read, so, and everything. Ashley, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, I appreciate it. A little card for you. And if you want to end us in the creed,
Oh,
that would be
yes.
fantastic.
We can end in the creed. We want to? Here, let me put this away.
And then we'll go around black.
All right, you got a wrap thing?
Yes. Remember, you use your hat. Then you can just-
Yes, you can use my hat.
We'll do back to the creed.
All right, we'll do the creed. Okay, all you older members that can't see as well, you come up front. Oh, that's good. That means I got to do this or whatever. But I'll go back next to my JC wife and do it. How's that sound? And we'll do the creed. It's been a while since we've done it. I better stand over here so I can see it. I think I'll remember it. We believe
that faith in God gives meaning and purpose to human life, that the brotherhood of man transcends the sovereignty of nations, that economic justice can best be won by free men through free enterprise, that government should be of laws rather than of men, that earth's great treasure lies in human personality, and that service to humanity